Year 12, this is Mrs. Knight, and today we're going to be looking at efficiency ratios. So with efficiency ratios, this will follow on from the work we've looked at on profitability ratios and gearing ratios. So when we're looking at efficiency ratios, we're looking at how efficient managers are in controlling the current assets within the business. And in terms of the current assets, if we remember, we have three, which are stock, debtors and cash. And the current assets are the ones that can easily be turned into cash for a business. So there are three ratios that we're going to be looking at today. And these are payable days, receivable days and inventory turnover. Okay, so the first one we're going to be focusing on is payable days. So payable days is a measure of how long it takes for a business to pay for any kind of goods that it has purchased on credit. So payables, another term would be creditors. So these are people who you owe money to. And ideally, you would like, as a business, as long as possible, to be able to pay your creditors, because that eases up your cash flow and makes things a lot more smooth for you. Dependent on how long your business has been in existence for will depend on the length of the payable days. So a new business is likely to have very, very short payable days because you've got no proven track record of being able to pay it back. A more established business has potentially got a longer payable days because they've got a proven track history, hopefully, of being able to pay their debts on time. However, a short payables days could result in discounts. So if you've been trading for a while, but you always make sure you pay your bills on time, your suppliers may recognise this, and as a gesture of goodwill, they may offer you a 5% or a 10% discount because you've continually been able to pay your bills on time. So the formula for payable days is payables over cost of sales times by 365. Pause the video now and make a note of the formula. Okay, so in order to calculate the formula, you will take the information from the two documents we've looked at previously. We've got the income statement and the balance sheet. So payables, as you can see, it's highlighted in red here. Payables, we will find this from the balance sheet, and we've got payables as £4,160. We then have our cost of sales, which we get from the income statement, and our cost of sales here is 30,100. Divide those together, so divide payables by cost of sales times by 365, and that gives 50 days. So here, the payables days is 50 days. What kind of conclusions can we draw from that? As a business, if you've got 50 days to pay your bills, is that positive? Is that negative? And how is that going to impact your cash flow? And then think about, why might a business be willing to have payable days of 60 to 90 days, so 2 to 3 months? Pause the video now and have a go answering the question. Okay, the next ratio we're looking at is receivable days, and this measures how long it takes for your customers to pay you. So this is for any kind of product or service that has been purchased on credit, and these are the debtors for your business. So receivables relates to debtors, payables relate to creditors. So as a business, what you would ideally want is you would want your customers to pay you as soon as possible because that eases your cash flow. However, if you have customers who potentially may be repeat customers, they buy in bulk and they buy a lot from you, you may wish to give them longer as an act of goodwill. So the formula again for this one is receivable days over sales revenue times by 365. Pause the video now and note down the formula. Okay, so if we have a look here, Receivables, as you can see, I've got it highlighted in red here. We get our receivables from the balance sheet, and we've got 1,170. Our sales revenue we take from the income statement, and we've got a sales revenue of 35,400. Receivables divided by sales revenue times by 365 equals 12 days. So therefore, it would take, for this particular business, 12 days to receive payment for any kind of product or service that they have sold on credit. Now, if you are thinking about 12 days, is that positive for the business? Is it negative? And why? And how would that impact cash flow? Pause the video now and answer the question. Okay, so I've got a couple of little questions for you to do now based on the work that we've just been looking at payables and receivables days. So question number 1, it says payables days was 50 days, receivables was 12. Should this business be concerned? So think about your answer, think about the impact on cash flow and money management and the efficiency of the business, because these ratios come under the classification efficiency ratios. Pause the video and answer that question. And then have a think about question number 2. Payables are compared to cost of sales, receivables are compared to revenue. Use business terminology and what you understand about these particular ratios to explain the relationship between them. Pause the video and answer the question. And finally, question number 3. What might be the expected receivable days of a high street coffee chain? So for this, it would be something like Costa Coffee. So if you go into Costa Coffee and buy a cup of coffee and a brownie, are you going to pay immediately, or are you going to say to the barista, are you going to say, right, okay, I'll pay you in 2 weeks' time? And then compare that, your answer to the first one, with the answer to the second one, a commercial print company. So a company that may be printing business cards or greeting cards, etc. Are you, as a customer, going to be paying them immediately? Or are you going to be expected to pay within a week or 2 weeks or a couple of months? And what I'd like you to do is just compare and contrast the answers for both of those. Pause the video now and answer the question. Okay, the next ratio we're going to look at is inventory turnover, and another word for inventory is stock. So when we're looking at inventory turnover, we're looking at how much stock a business has got through over a period of time. And to calculate our average inventory, we find the average from the start and from the end of the year. So to see what a business had at the start, compare it with what they've got at the end, and then work out the average. So in order to do this, you would need different years' balance sheets. Okay, another way to do this, instead of, if you don't have that to hand or you don't have that information in an exam question, the easiest thing to do is to divide your cost of sales, which you will be given on your income statement, by the inventory from the balance sheet. So inventory turnover measures how frequently a business goes through its stock in a year. And lots of different businesses will go through stock at different rates. So if you're a hot dog stand and you're at a fun fair, you're hopefully going to go through your stock daily. You don't want to be selling sausages that you've had for a couple of days and they're all, I'm not going to go there. A fashion retailer, you're hopefully going to be wanting to get rid of your stock maybe at least once a season, get through the summer stock, sell that on, and then get your winter stock in. And potentially if you're a new car showroom, you may turn your stock over twice a year when the new registration plates come out. If you're an old car stock room, that could be a lot more frequent, but stock turnover depends on the nature of the firm and the industry that they're operating in. So the formula for inventory turnover is cost of sales over average inventory or average stock held. Pause the video now and note down the formula. Okay, so now we are looking at the information that we've got here on inventory turnover. So our cost of sales are 30,100 and our average inventory held is 2,375. So what I would like you to do now is to calculate the inventory turnover and to tell me for how long the business holds stock for. And then tell me what kind of business may have this level of inventory turnover. So is it going to be something like the answers we've had previously? Is it going to be daily? Is it going to be every quarter? Is it going to be annual? And think about the answer to the final question. Why might it be more accurate to divide by average inventory rather than just inventory? So pause the video now and have a go answering the questions. Okay, hopefully you got the right answer, and the right answer for this one was 12.67 times. Okay, and hopefully you've come up with some good reasons for why businesses or what different types of businesses have this kind of inventory turnover figure. Okay, the final thing that I want to look at with you today is the value of conducting ratio analysis. And as you've seen, we've looked at efficiency, profitability and gearing ratios when we're looking to assess a business performance. Now, ratios can provide a lot of value to a business because it allows them to quickly interpret accounts. You've got some figures that you can compare between the business and the business performance over time. Also, you have some figures that you can compare externally with other businesses in your industry. So you can try and find some industry average or benchmark. And the main purpose of this can be to aid decision making. So internally with any kind of stakeholder within the business, or externally by potential investors who may see, right, this business is worth investing. You're very efficient, you've got high levels of profitability, and you get a good return on capital employed. So these figures could be of value. Potential drawbacks or that your accounts, so your balance sheet and your income statement, could have been window dressed. And by that, it doesn't mean fiddled or forged, it means presented in a more popular light. So instead of saying we've made a 75% loss this year, you would say we've made 25% profit. It's taking the figures that you've got and presenting them in a more positive light. And also, ratios don't just represent one thing. Student exams don't just represent one thing. If you got an A star in a particular exam, it could be because you've worked really, really hard, etc., etc. Or there could be other factors surrounding that. You could have had a personal tutor, you could have gone to summer school, you could be naturally intelligent, etc. There are always reasons behind it. So for business, if return on capital employed is lower than a previous year, it could be because they have had an investment program, they could have spent a bit too much, it could be the first year. And there are lots of other things that you can think of. This only takes into account financial information. It doesn't take into account the state of the economy. When businesses produce their balance sheets and income statements, which will cover the coronavirus period, that will be significantly lower. And if you were to just look at that in complete isolation, you would say, oh, that business is performing terribly. But if you look at it in the context of the entire globe was in the middle of a pandemic and nobody was buying anything, that would be justification for what's happening. So when you are answering an examination question and you are looking at financial ratios, you would want a more holistic picture that is not just going to be looking at the quantitative data. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is note down some of those values and limitations, and also have a go thinking about the answers to the questions on the left-hand side of the page. Pause the video now and note down your answers. Okay, so I've got an activity for you to do. So if we were in school, I would put you together in groups and you would be looking at two separate businesses within industry. So you could pick two supermarkets or two football clubs, and I would get you to print off the balance sheet and income statement and compare them together. As you're working from home, what I'd like you to do is to just pick two businesses and pick an industry that you're particularly interested in. So you could pick Netflix and Disney, for example. And what I would like you to do, instead of doing a presentation, I would just like you to have a look at their two documents, the balance sheet and income statement. It doesn't matter if the information is out of date, if it's historical data, or if it's the most recent 2018, 2019, or 2019, 2020 data. And all I would like you to do is just have a look at the business performance over time. And you could compare gross profit, net profit figures, you can compare balance sheet figures, etc., just so that you get an understanding of why these particular documents are produced. There shouldn't be an onerous task, and I wouldn't really want you spending more than about 10 minutes per business on this. So if you were looking at Netflix, you'd go on the internet, you'd find Netflix balance sheet and income statement, have a quick look through, note down a couple of the key factors and some of the key, work out a couple of key ratios. Do the same for, say, Disney. Have a look through, print off the two documents, or not necessarily even print them out, just put them up on screen and note down a couple of points. Okay, so if you'd like to pause the video now and have a go at that activity. Okay, so I'd just like to sum up what we've been looking at. So over the last couple of lessons, we've been looking at businesses assessing their financial performance, and we've looked at a couple of documents, the balance sheet and the income statement, and how we can draw information from those in order to calculate some ratios. We've looked at profitability, liquidity, gearing and efficiency ratios, and also we've looked at the value of these when we're assessing performance over time. Thank you very much for your time. Bye now.